G'day, this is Peter Anthony. Welcome to your Buddez podcast. If your business has reached the size where you're thinking about, should I employ a digital agency or a media agency or not? Should I get someone internal to help me with my social media marketing? Today's podcast will be very valuable to you. I'm joined by Rattan from the KlewdUp agency, and we're going to have a conversation about when the right size is for you to consider engaging an agency, what sort of criteria should you use, and what's the right size of your business to use a digital agency. Let's welcome Rattan. G'day, Rattan. You're an agency expert, you'd have to say. I'm curious about when the agency journey started for you.
Hi, Peter. My agency journey started in 2007. So
Okay.
I think a very long time ago, nearly 20 years ago. I always feel like a dinosaur walking around the rooms and conferences these days, but everyone tells me I'm a very young looking dinosaur, which is nice, which is very nice. But 20 years in digital marketing, advertising, and technology. So pretty much seen it all, been through all the trends, and heard, can I go viral? A number of times, probably too many times.
Yeah, I think that's probably more a recent thing to viral, because I've had maybe a little bit longer ago. I worked in agencies for about 15 years in some big multinationals, and I left when agencies were a very different beast. They were full service. By that we mean like there was advertising, direct media, public relations, everything under one roof, and we'd serve big clients like full service globally. But now it looks like there's a lot more fragmentation. Is that fair to say in agencies?
There is a lot of fragmentation. It depends on how big your business is. Say for our listeners today, if you're a small to medium business, you're looking at agencies that are very specialized, because you're not going to one of the really large shops like a DDP or WPP. These are really big conglomerates. You would probably be looking at a specialist meta agency. And what I like to think of, or what I like to see now, because even us as normal people, you might have an Instagram account, or you might have Meta, Facebook account, and you will relentlessly get targeted by agencies promising you the world on these. So a lot of it is specialist agencies. You know, people will come up and say, I can manage your Meta, I can manage your Google ads, I can manage your CRM, your website. There's all these specialists. Is it better to go all into one agency, or is it better to fragment? I think the latter. It's better to go in with specialists for each job, because you know what you're getting. Doesn't mean that you have to have an agency for everything, but to have a specialist who knows what they're doing and is experienced in your vertical is extremely important in my mind.
So you think over that period you've been in agencies and like serving clients, it looks like it's fragmented so that smaller businesses could get more specialist advice from agencies. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's twofold. I think that the first thing is there's a rise, when you and I first started, you look like a young 30-year-old, but when you first started, it would have been probably a few years before me, but there wasn't a Meta. There weren't, Facebook, it was called Facebook back then. I still remember, funny story. I was interviewed to become employee number 1 for Facebook on the ground in Australia back in 2009. So that's how long ago it was between me and another bloke. Obviously, we're here today and he got the job, so we're here today. But that was it. When we started, everything was very novel. Digital was a new channel. And something else to think about, when I first started my career, we hit the GFC, the global financial crisis. I think that was 2008. I was 2 years in, and, not to use terrible language, but I was very scared and, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. I've just graduated with a monster HEX debt and everything. What am I going to do? But what I found, and what has held me in good stead, is that people kept investing in digital, because that is where the eyeballs are. That is where people are. You spend more time on your mobile and on your laptop and on your device. If you think about how people have even something as simple as watching TV, they now watch TV as what is called second screen, or now what's called triple screen. So they'll be looking at their telephone, they'll be looking at their iPad and watching TV at the same time. So you're looking at 3 devices, whereas, when we were younger, you had TV and you had free to air, and that was your
Mm.
channel. Now you've got
Yeah.
Netflix, you've got Hubble, you've got all these 101 different options. We never had those choices. And the reason fragmentation has come in is because of choice. And that is also true for customers. When your end customer, no matter what business you're running, running a F&B retail business, whatever you're doing, your customer has so much choice. Customers have never had more choice than now. And that is the issue. The biggest issue is we're running an attention economy. How do you continue to keep the person's attention and be able to then convert them to a sale? That's I think where this fragmentation piece plays in, because you want people who are experts in their field to be able to help you keep that attention and really help you scale there.
I like that phrase. It's an attention economy, and we're bidding for attention. And I guess there's one of the competitors is not so much a different competitor in my niche. It might be watching a Netflix show. It might be doing nothing. It might be going for a walk. It might be searching Amazon for something I want to buy. So that the competitors are much broader now, aren't they? That they're wider than they used to be. That you've got more like that couple of minutes it might take me to buy something online. I could spend that couple of minutes while I'm on my phone or on my digital device watching something else or doing something else. Yeah.
100%. And the availability of choice, because I had a colleague fly in from Singapore, and when we grew up, we never had, whenever you went to a foreign country, you came back with things. Now, when he gave me presents, I'm like, I could get all of this in Chinatown, or I could go somewhere else. So again, it's the attention piece. For me, I looked at the presents, incredibly grateful, but I look at it and I'm like, I could get this somewhere else in Australia. So it's the idea of how do you keep the person's attention, and then the vast array of choice that they have that allows them to just go, cool, I've seen it, not interested, move on.
Yes. And with the way logistics has scaled now, you can get something from almost anywhere in the world in a couple of days. You don't need to have a friend flying somewhere to bring you back a special gift. And that is special when they've thought of you and it's come from a friend. But you can pretty much get anything you like on your phone. Just click.
Exactly.
Click.
Yeah. And you're done.
Yeah.
The most interesting app I saw recently was in India, where it's called In Your Roots or something like that, where you can order food from another state, wherever you are in India. You can order food from a particular state and a particular food, and they'll get it to you in 48 hours fresh. It's freshly cooked, and they'll get it to you from there in 48. All you're paying is for the cost of the food and the delivery, and the cost of the food is no greater than going to your local takeaway shop.
Wow.
It's just the delivery cost that you pay for. And that is really astounding in my mind, that the idea that you can get whatever you want within 48 hours, all you have to pay for is delivery.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, when I first started working in India and China, I became aware that there's no such thing as Indian food or Chinese food. I mean, when you're in India, the food from different provinces of India is completely different, similar to China. There's no like Chinese food in China. It's all very provincial, and it's all very delicious in its own particular way. But if you think about that, you think, I'm a small business, and I think, well, my competitors aren't just people that are providing the same service. My competitor could be a meal, it could be a Netflix show, it could be walking my dog, it could be searching on Amazon, it could be anything at all. I guess that when you say it's an attention economy, it's harder and harder and harder to compete for that attention, and that just it's changing faster too. I mean, when we started advertising, things stayed relatively stable for a relatively long, so you could lock into a strategy, and a lot of our clients might use that same strategy for 5 years, same strategy. Whereas now the strategy is going to change almost quarterly, hasn't it? Because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. It would change, I would say, in some cases. If you look at the TikTok generation, as they would call it, the youngest generation, their attention used to be 3 seconds. Now they say that it's 1 second. That's how long you have for someone to notice your brand. And a lot of small business owners, whenever we work with small to medium businesses, I always say the same thing. I have a great line that I use that's very popular, is that I'm a marketer, not a magician. If you actually focus on your brand and do your brand really well and build your brand, we can do the marketing. The marketing will inherently follow, because people are going to stick to your brand. They like your brand. Whereas if you're another generic brand, why should they buy from you? They could go on to Temu. They could go onto
Yeah,
Amazon,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's always that scare campaign about Temu, Shein, and any of these other conglomerates that are coming into Australia, flooding the market with cheap product. Whereas if you've got a really solid brand and brand loyalty, people, you have the attention, and that attention economy, you're straight. Whenever you send an email, you put up an ad, you're going to be the one that's going to be front and center because the person knows who you are, likes your brand, and will come back. And that feeds back into that attention economy we were talking about. So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
the key that I always say to brands is focus on your brand, and then everything else will follow. And how that brand is, stay true to what your values are. What do you want your
yeah.
values to be, and things like that.
And I guess they need to know, like, and trust you. They need to know you first and like you, and then trust you before they're going to consider buying from you. Otherwise, I'm going to fall back on a brand I know. If you're new in that marketplace and there are established competitors, it might take me a little longer, or I've got to have something unique or relevant about the way that I approach the service or I approach this particular product that means I'm going to prefer you. That might take, like in social media terms, that might take quite a while. Like it might take a lot of content before I'm comfortable with you. Yeah,
Mm,
to break through.
that's right. I think a great example is a client we work with in the food space, where food delivery is a very, very congested space. They've been around for a long time, 19 years. They're called the Dinner Ladies. They're a fantastic meal delivery service. We've
Okay.
worked with them for a number of years, but their brand is incredibly strong, and people
Mm,
will always think of them because their brand is so strong. The food is also excellent, amazing. I always say it's the best food you can get outside. It's cheaper than takeaway and healthy and all that. I'm not selling Dinner Ladies here on the podcast, but definitely go try it out. But I think the key with them is their brand. People always come back to them because of their brand, and the marketing follows. Everything else that we do is following. Whenever we do ads, we do emails, whatever we do for them, everything just follows because their brand is so strong, but they stay true to their brand. As a great example, they never go on sale. Now a
mm,
lot of small businesses feel forced to go on sale to, meet the market where it is. I think
mm,
if you, again, have a strong brand, you don't need to go on sale. A lot of the brands that we work with, they don't often go on sale because there's value in staying true to your pricing. You set
mm,
your
mm,
pricing, say you're selling something for $100. If you say, hey, I'm going to give it to you for 60% off, then why didn't
mm.
you sell it for 60% off?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
and
A lot of small businesses I talk to too, they think their brand is their product,
mm,
whereas the product is part of the brand. The brand, to my way of thinking, is the experience the consumer has with that product or that service. That could be a whole range of things. It could be the product itself. It could be the unboxing experience. It could be the founders. It could be a whole like the philosophy of the company. It's a whole range of things that resonates with me, and the more relevant that is to me as a consumer, the more I can charge. And you think of the most established brands in the world, like the luxury or like higher end brands. They rarely discount. They never really talk about buy this because it's cheap. They say buy it because it's great, like an ultimate
mm,
driving experience with BMW, for example. You never see BMW saying buy one of our cars because they're cheap, they're on special. This doesn't happen, does it? And
exactly.
you almost got to have the confidence to build that brand experience, don't you?
No, exactly. And it comes with time, and we don't
Yeah,
have, like, you're a small business owner, I'm a small business owner. We don't have the
yeah,
luxury of time. With the stats that are out there, I think something like 85% of businesses fail in the first year.
yeah,
I have
yeah.
a very easy rule: fail fast, fail hard, and move on.
Yes,
Try something and move on.
I like that. But I always I find it curious that the old Vince Lombardi quote that what winners never quit and quitters never win. I think intelligent quitting is really important. Like try
Mm,
something, and if it doesn't work, don't try harder. If it's not working, you're just going to waste more money, waste more time. Try something else, and just keep trying things until something works. Until the consumer or your customer is happy in a way that you can make profit. Otherwise, it's a hobby, not a business, right? You can have a great hobby,
exactly.
it doesn't make any money. That's fine. Enjoy that. But if it's a business, it's there to make money. It's as
And
simple as
and
that.
that's it. We're all in it to make money. And one of the biggest things, whenever we talk about the attention economy or any of these points, it's never been easier to just ask the customer. We always say to our customers, just do a survey. You don't need an expensive, overpriced tool.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah.
use anything cheap. There's MailChimp, there's all these Survey Monkey, which is $5, $10, $20. But if you ask your customer, why aren't you buying our product, or maybe not something as direct as that, but if they have lapsed, as in they purchase but don't purchase with you anymore, just send them a survey, ask them why, offer them something
Yeah.
off the back of it. Because even a conglomerate, like we work with some of Coles, as in some of the Coles supermarket brands, and whenever I get an email from them saying, fill out a survey, I always ask, what's in it for me? If they offer me a value proposition, even if it's something like 500 Flybuys points, I'm like, great, that means I get $2.50. But something in my brain, does $2.50 matter? No, that's cheaper than a coffee, but I'm getting a reward. It's always a carrot and stick. It's very simple. Even when we were children, you think about carrot and stick when your parents talk to you. I have a 2-year-old. Everything's carrot and stick. And that's the thing that you're doing with consumers, carrot and stick.
Exactly. And you think about that consumer experience, and you think a lot of people, like old school people, talk more about, say, customer satisfaction, like how satisfied were you satisfied or not. I like to think about that experience as to say, think of the key characteristics of the brand that I'm proposing to my customers, and ask them, how did you experience us? And ideally, how would you like to experience us? Because there may be some things we don't know about, because we're assuming, because we're not a consumer, and oftentimes we're so stuck in our product and our design, our delivery, our logistics, our box, like all those things, that we are not our consumer. So it's useful to ask them to say, hey, how are you experiencing us? So we're really curious, and give them a reward. I like the reward idea. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. We're really grateful that you purchased from us. If you just take a few moments to fill in this piece, we'll give you the results back, and that will demonstrably help us serve you even better. And you think, well, that happens so rarely. I mean, satisfied or not, what does that tell me? Okay, I was satisfied with what you did. Well, how do you know? What does that change? What do you do with I'm satisfied? If you know all the criteria, like how did I experience it, and ideally how would I like to experience it? Maybe I can dial some things down that were quite expensive for me to do service-wise, and dial some things up that are really important to the consumer. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. And I think if it comes, especially when you're a small to medium business, I always encourage founders. I know you're short on time. We all are. But try and do this yourself. Pick up the phone every now and then if you've got a customer. Ask them the question. And when you do things like that, that also fosters social media content, because you often see brands where the owner has picked up the phone and called someone who's had a big delivery, or maybe the delivery failed. That's social media content, because the person, if they pick up the phone and go, hi, Peter, your delivery was delayed, but I'm the owner, I'm making sure it's going out, you'd be thrilled, because you're like, oh, wow, that person has spent some time talking to me.
Yeah. And real life examples, like I know there's a very popular sales guru who's now a property guru, a guy called Grant Cardone, and he has this content where he's teaching selling, right? He's teaching how to sell. And there's a lot of content of him selling live over the phone. He's calling like potential prospects, and he's using the techniques that he's selling to sell his sales programs, right? Which is very cool, because it's real. It's not like a highly stylized shot of me by a beautiful tree walking through the sunshine talking about my product. That's not real life. I think it seems like one of the more recent trends in media is this whole idea of like lower production values, more authenticity, more real, if you like. And I guess that's, if we think of know, like, and trust, I'm going to trust you quicker if I get a more real experience of you.
100%. When you're a small to medium business, it's about authenticity. I think that's the main thing. Authenticity matters for the simple reason that if you get to the point of a Cotton On or something, you don't need to be authentic, because everyone knows your name. They just want price, they want loyalty, they want product. When you're a small to medium business and you're not known, it's all about authenticity. How do I separate your business from the next business that's there?
Exactly. And if I'm competing against Cotton On, say if I'm making clothing, I think, well, and clearly if I'm a small business, I would be charging more for clothing than Cotton On does. So what is it about my brand that makes it valuable enough for me and special enough for me that I'm prepared to pay more and potentially have a more inconvenient experience than if I go to Cotton On? What is it? Is it sustainability? Is it ethical sourcing? Is it particular styling, particular colors, particular sizes, whatever it might be? There needs to be something there, otherwise you'll get smashed. If you're a clothing brand competing head on with Cotton On, that's just not the plan. The other thing I was going to ask you about too is it just seems like there's media gets more and more fragmented. There's more fragmentation taking place, and it's more complex. And like I was just talking to a colleague of mine a couple of days ago, Sophie, and I'm like, I am a big junkie for YouTube. I love YouTube. And over the last 5 or 6 years, I've really got into the metrics of YouTube and using tools like vidIQ and others to really understand how YouTube works. Now, I can't understand as an individual how I could have that much knowledge cross platforms. Like if I open up Instagram, I don't really know how it works. I love it, but I don't know the nuts and bolts of it, or even how to, like in YouTube, I know how to say, change a headline or change a description or change a tag or link a different video. And it makes quite dramatic impacts. But as a small business owner, you can't afford to know that level of detail across all these platforms, could you? Yeah.
No, and it's not your job. You've started the business not to become an Instagram expert or a YouTube expert. You
That's true.
started the business because you understand what you've started. If you're selling, let's take your example of what you were saying, selling clothes. You started because you have a passion about selling clothes. You want to design the best clothes. And this is where the idea comes in to hire specialists, to hire people that actually know what they're doing. Yes, I think along with all of the media choices, there's a lot of choices in agencies and everything. The idea of when you actually start selecting an agency is when you get to a point where you've got enough revenue that you need outside help. You feel like you need outside help. Because when you think about it, I love using this example because over the 20 years I've fired, been through the process essentially with over 500 jobs. And one of the things that you look at in a digital world, if you're hiring someone who does digital, we all look for a unicorn who can do emails, organic social media. They can do everything for me. All my ads doesn't exist. That person doesn't exist. I'll be clear. Or they can do everything slightly badly, if that makes sense. Because you're an expert at everything but a master at none. And the idea behind all of this fragmentation is that you hire specialists, you bring people in who will help you grow that, and they understand each of their platforms. Yes, you will have agencies who have a broader remit and they understand a few different things. What you want to do is ask them the right questions, partner with people that you actually like. That's what business is at the end of the day. You want to talk to these people and ask the question, are you going to be, when we are pitching for business, one of the things I always say to people is, if you're talking to me, I'm the person who's working on your account. I'm not offshoring the business somewhere. You're not going to be talking to 20-year-old, nothing wrong with speaking to 20-year-olds. They're, incredibly competent at what they do. However, if you want experience, and I often say this to people that, because a lot of businesses are getting pushed on margin, there's that approach to offshore. Because you want people, but there's nothing wrong with that. However, you can't pay Manila prices and expect Sydney service. That's sort of the tagline that I always say to people. But find the right partner who will help you scale so that you yourself as a business owner can focus on your business. I think if you start as a business owner, too many times I see business owners going, don't worry, I can do advertising on Facebook myself. And I'm like, yeah, you could. But are you actually then spending enough time on your logistics? Are you spending enough time in new product development? Do you understand? Are you researching what your competitors are doing and how they're getting ahead of you because they paid someone else to actually manage their ads? Do their email marketing because they want to focus on just their products. And I think that is where people get lost sometimes because it's easy now with the rise of YouTube. I know before we started this podcast, we spoke about, when I first started my career and I, same as yourself, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Reddit. We didn't have ChatGPT. Now, you go onto ChatGPT, ask it a question, you'll get an answer. But guess what? It's a generic answer. It's not for your business. It's never going to be targeted. Specialists bring that specialist knowledge in your industry, in your vertical, with an idea of having done this before. Hey, I've done X, Y, Z. That's why I know what I'm doing. Trust me. And there is a certain level of trust. Whereas if you go to ChatGPT, you're not going to ask ChatGPT going, can I trust you, ChatGPT? It'll go, yes, you can. It's a computer, for God's sakes, If a YouTube,
plus it can't actually like do anything. It can advise you. I mean, AI. I do love AI. As a small business owner, it is so useful for finding things out or rephrasing things or researching things. And I'm sure agency people use AI too. That's not like anything sort of secretive about that. But you think the AI can't have say the experience that you've had over the past 20 years. So working with
Mm.
multiple clients in various parts of the world, and it can't use that human to human understanding that you get when you take a brief from a client. Because quite often I found this when I worked in agencies, that the clients didn't really understand how to brief me properly because they didn't really understand how advertising worked. You think, well, part of the job is to teach, like for you to teach them how to brief you, like what you need to know to make a great campaign for them. Whereas AI doesn't know that. AI doesn't know that level of human connection. Do you find that sometimes with clients that to some extent, you're almost like an educator to them?
A lot of that's a great point. A lot of my role and a lot of what we're doing is education, training,
Yeah, yeah,
giving you
yeah,
an
yeah.
understanding of the systems you're using, tools you're using, and also then making sure that you're set up for success. Because the more we can educate, the more you understand. And the next
Yeah, yeah,
brief or the next product or the next thing that you do in your
yeah,
business
yeah.
means that you know how to amplify it better because you understand the mechanics of where you are. Because if we go back to the attention economy, we've got Meta, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, YouTube. We talk to brands and we say, you know, who is your audience? What's your product? And depending on that, that's the channel that you go. Because too often people will say, oh, I need to be on TikTok. And I said, are you appealing to 14-year-olds to 30-year-olds? If so, yes, you need to be on TikTok. Is your target market, if you're a retirement home, all you need to be is on Facebook and Instagram. Because when I think about, people who are above 60, that's who is on Facebook these days. They're on Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
yeah,
won't
yeah.
find a 14-year-old dead on Facebook. They might go onto Facebook as a joke because their parents are on there, but they don't ever go on there on a daily basis.
Exactly. And it doesn't convert well. I mean, I mentioned earlier that I'm a big YouTube devotee, love it. And I was working with a client last year in a workshop, and one of them said, you should be on TikTok because there's a guy like you on TikTok, just like you. And she showed me this guy. And I thought, fair enough. So I started putting my YouTube reels, upload them to TikTok just as an
Mm.
experiment. And what I found was really interesting. I was getting a lot of views on TikTok. By a lot for me, it's like 5,000 views for a short, but none of them were converting, right? And when you look at the view, it's basically just scrolling because TikTok is trying to get an older audience, right? So it doesn't, from an ego perspective, it was great, but from a business perspective, it wasn't converting into, they weren't taking calls to action, they weren't downloading resources. Whereas on YouTube, the view level was lower, but the conversion rate was higher. So in lots of ways, I'd rather have less views with a more engaged audience than thousands of views from
And no
15-year-olds that are just
engagement.
scrolling past with no engagement.
Yeah.
And it takes a little while to understand things like that, unless you're in the weeds. You think, oh, great, I've got all these views. It must be working really well, but maybe not. Like, who's viewing it? How's it converting? Are they my audience or not? Am I pitching to them? There's a whole lot of expertise that someone like you can bear for those situations.
No, exactly. But
Yeah.
I think you raised such a good point that use your content, use existing material that you have to cross post. You don't
Yeah.
have to, launch entirely new marketing strategies for different channels because you don't have the
Yeah.
bandwidth. As a small business
Yeah.
owner or a medium business owner, you don't have the bandwidth to be able to, or your staff don't have the bandwidth to be able to release an entirely new channel and do content for an entirely new channel. So exactly what you said. Go cross post your existing content, see how it
Yeah.
performs. If you feel you're getting some kind of traction on that platform, or you
Yeah.
believe that that's where your audience is, then definitely do some more
Yeah.
TikTok. I
Yeah. Go
know
for it.
people who've just built their entire business on TikTok, but they're appealing to a younger audience and a younger
Yeah. Yeah.
demographic.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
if you look at demographic data, maybe not the 14-year-olds, but the 18 to 35s are more likely to spend money these days than people who are over 40 for the simple reason by the time you reach 40, you'd like to think you have a bit more sense, a bit more financial
Mm-mm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you might have more savings, but you're unlikely because you've probably got to have mortgage, you've got a family. Whereas when you're 18 to 35, I know I was carefree, didn't even think about children, didn't think about mortgages. Whatever money you got, you spend, and that's what happens these days.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's why getting really, really clear on your demographic is super important, isn't it? Like really understanding not just what you're selling, but who you're selling to, and how does that particular brand resonate with them. And there could be other audiences, other potential customers that you're not reaching. But the great thing too about working in this media landscape is you can get clients from all over the world. There's like the content I'm making is all English speaking content, and we're getting viewership. This is on the Buddies platforms. We're getting viewership from obviously from Australia. We're getting it from US. We're getting it from Canada. We're getting it from Ireland, UK. And interestingly enough, we get a lot of viewers in Germany, of all places. For some reason, the Germans like what we do, which is great. You think, well, we're making this content in Australia, and it's being viewed all over the world, and people can join the network from all over the world because a small bit, the sort of problems a small business has here are the same problems a small business has in Canada or the US or Germany. It's the same because they basically have the same problems with the same size and need the same help from agencies, don't they? It doesn't really
Correct.
change.
It's a universal problem. When you start a business, what channels do I advertise on? What website, where do I build my website? How do I maintain my website? What emails do I send? Those are common problems. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Ireland, whether in the US or Canada or Australia, it's all the same.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
one thing that you realize is the only difference is market size. As we often quote, Australia is the size of California in terms of people and
Mm.
GDP. So the gross domestic product is the same size as California. So what you want to get to is, hey, how can I actually go to a bigger market? You can use Australia. Some of the businesses I worked for were global conglomerates. They would use Australia as a test base. If they wanted to
Yes,
release a new product, they'd use it as a test base and then you'd go abroad. Whereas if you're a smaller business, you've got smaller budgets, maybe try that on a smaller location. I always say if you've got less than $5,000, less than $2,000 a month to spend on advertising, maybe just do it on some suburbs around you that you're well known. We're in the Northern Beaches in Sydney. Maybe just
mm.
advertise around the Northern Beaches because that way you're spending your money in an audience. And if someone wants to come to your shop, they know where you are. They know that
Oh,
you're a local. And I think that matters a lot because people still want that emotional connection to a business and they want to be able to buy local, support local. Of course, that has to be along with your
yeah.
pricing strategy, but it's incredibly important to spend your money wisely.
And now too, if you think about platforms like Shopify and global logistics like Global 3PL, you can open an online store and sell anywhere in the world. And with tools like print on demand or manufacturing on demand, you can get them made anywhere in the world. It staggers me how much there is. We've got a luxury of choice, haven't we? And there's almost too much choice in the media sense, and those choices become more complex, and they're changing faster. So if I'm running my business, I can't afford the time it would take to really understand how those platforms work and how they keep changing for my particular customers. I'm better off focusing myself on my product and my customer experience and allow someone that knows what they're doing to do the rest. A bit like manufacturing it myself, right? I'm not going to employ a manufacturer. I'm going to go into the tools and make it myself. It doesn't make sense, does it really?
No, exactly. And the manufacturing part, I think you mentioned that's such a good example because at the end of the day, you're going to hire someone who can do things at scale, who
Yeah,
can
yeah.
give you cost efficiencies, but deliver the value and the product that you're looking for. And that's the same with advertising. You're looking for someone who can deliver at scale because they've done it before, they have the
Yeah.
expertise, and that's the main thing that you're looking for. Irrespective of whether you're a small business, whether you're a medium business, or even a large one, I think the main thing is always say if you're looking for if you're looking for an agency, try and understand a few things. One, do you have the budget for an agency? Understand how much
Mm,
their budgets are, what their retainers are. Do you need someone long term? Yes, no. Because at the end of the day, when you go to any business, they want to work with you for a long term basis because they want to see that their work actually comes to fruition or bears some fruit. The other thing is, do you have the resource internally to be able to dedicate to briefing someone, to working with someone externally to actually say, understand the
mm,
results they're presenting to you? And then
mm,
most importantly, can you take feedback? As in, hey, things aren't working. You need to change X, Y, Z. Often that, we'll see in my career, I've seen people, brands will go, no, I'll just change agency because the next person told me or I saw on Instagram, they're promising me 3 months free or I don't have to pay anything if I don't get over X revenue. I've often worked off the same old adage is that there is nothing in this world which is free. There's no free lunch. If
mm,
someone's offering you something for free, there's a bullet that you're going to have to bite at some point in time. It
mm.
might sound like it's saving you money in the short term because you're not having to pay a retainer, you're not having to pay someone. But inherently ask yourself, why are they doing it for free? What's in it to me? And if
Yeah,
you as a business owner, could you give your product away for free? No, you couldn't. So it's
no.
that quid pro quo approach of understand why you're getting something and what you're getting. You're getting expertise. If you're getting that expertise, great, then pay for it, you know?
I like some of those, I call them scammers that will offer you like 50,000 views or 100,000 likes, or they're using like bots to,
Mm.
and they're all those viewers or those they're not real people. It's
It's
crazy,
just
but
bots, it's
it just bots. You think, well, it's good sort of cosmetics. And so I got 100,000 views on my video, but they're not real views. That's not, you're not
mm,
working in a real world. They're not people that could potentially convert into just like vanity metrics. It's not never going to convert into money.
yeah.
It's crazy. But I guess you've got to leave your ego at the door, right? Because you're not going to and ask for the help that you need.
And I think often, I run a marketing agency, but I'm also a trained accountant. It took me a
Oh, right.
long time for myself to go, hey, I need everything. I managed everything on spreadsheets, P&Ls. It was all fantastic. Till I hired my first accountant. He said, you're brilliant. This is great, but how much time do you waste? And I was like, yeah, quite a bit actually. So I got zero. I bit the bullet. I got zero. And now everything is through zero. Could I leave zero? No, I probably couldn't. And that's the relationship that you're looking for out of partners, where you work with a partner because you it's not that you're overly reliant on them, but you understand their value. You understand the value that they're providing. And I think the biggest value sometimes that people fail to acknowledge is saving you time. Time is money. I'm always using that line of time is money because if you are spending an hour here, hour there, you could spend 5 hours learning how to manage advertising, set up an email campaign, do your next thing on Shopify. But could you spend those 5 hours researching a new product? Could you do it
Yeah, yeah,
to call customers and understand why they churned? Spend your time better, and you will inherently get
that's
better
true.
rewards in the long run.
It's a hard lesson sometimes, but there's an opportunity cost for every moment, for every block of time that you're spending. You think, well, is this the best way for me to spend my time? Or could I pay someone? Could I pay someone to get a better result in a faster time period
Mm.
than what I could do? I'm maybe more useful doing something else. That's partly ego. That's partly just smart business, isn't it? It's interesting, that opportunity cost of time.
Yeah, I think I feel the hard part is for people is trust because inherently you will end up hiring an agency or you hire someone, or even if you hire someone internally as an employee, the idea that you work with someone to help you on digital marketing, which is a very commonly known thing now, people will make the mistake of hiring the wrong person, hiring the wrong agency. So there's that inherent trust issue as well. It's like
Yeah.
a relationship in a way. Like you've had a few bad boyfriends, you've had a few bad girlfriends, or you've had a
Mm-mm.
divorce. Doesn't mean that everyone out there is the same. And this is where I say, actually do your homework, ask questions that are relevant to your business, that are relevant to your industry. So you're getting answers that you feel comfortable with. And that's the main thing in my mind. Don't be shy to ask questions. Don't just base the decision on money.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and you're quite in your agency. You're quite happy to have conversations, like honest conversations like that.
Completely. And I often get told I'm very direct. I've always been very direct because maybe it's age, maybe it's experience, but it's easier for me to tell you what I feel things will go. And yes, I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict the future. I wish I could. I'd be the same amount of money as Elon Musk, but I can't.
Yeah,
Um, what I can predict is customer sentiment. What I can roughly predict is how your media is going to perform, how meta ads are going to perform. Why and where is that prediction analysis coming from? Is experience because we've run these campaigns before. We understand, okay, we've done this for so and so brand. We understand what it is, and that's where that prediction is coming from. It's coming from experience, it's coming from past data and analysis. And I think being direct and having those direct conversations about money, about performance, about everything is so important in an agency relationship. Or even when you're direct, if you have an employee, when you manage people internally, and now for an average digital person, like a digital marketing manager, people want even 20-year-olds, they want 100,000. It's probably cheaper
Wow.
just to hire an agency because an average agency retainer could be anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 or above, depending on the size of your business. But think about it, you're paying someone $2,000. 2 into 12 is 24,000. Whereas if you hire someone in-house, which sounds like a great idea, could be 100,000, even 80,000, 90,000,
Mm-mm.
24,000 versus 90,000. And is that person who's coming 5 days a week into your office generating that value? And if at that point in time, they're probably not. They probably want to go for coffee. They want to leave. They've got other
That wouldn't be
responsibilities.
as experienced as like when you're engaging an agency. You're engaging the expertise of a group. You're getting a group of people, or a group of people that are potentially working on your brand or working on like growing your business. And they're likely to be a bit older and a bit more experienced. Where if you, and nothing against 20-year-olds, I've got a 20-year-old daughter, but if you employ a 20-year-old, she's likely to be working very hard and very focused. But there's no way she can have the level of experience. So even with like a university degree or a college education, she won't have the experience, but particularly working on, and this is what I found, working on different brands in different markets. There's nothing like that. Like when I was working in agencies, we had global brands in different categories. So the level of expertise that you pick up, weirdly enough, say working on a automotive brand does translate to, say, a telco brand that does translate to a sunglass brand. It's weird, but the experience of what works and what doesn't and how it works and the relationships you build with other vendors becomes really valuable, doesn't it? And what, for as little as $2,000 a month, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, it's a starting point, and that's the thing. But I will say, in defense of your 20-year-old daughter, if she's listening, I don't want to be beaten up by her. So I think there is value in hiring people. For example, or 20-year-olds, let's say younger people, for TikTok or channels that they understand.
Yeah,
There
yeah, yeah,
are
yeah.
new channels like Discord or Twitch, which is a streaming platform for gamers. There's Reddit, there's TikTok. These younger people will understand those channels a lot better. If I was to
Mm.
start a business tomorrow in retail or in anything around F&B, FMCG, or any of these categories, I always say, besides the 3PL warehousing, admin stuff, which you don't really need that many people, but if it's just the founder, I would hire agencies to do your marketing, but I'd hire one young 19 to 20-year-old to actually manage your social media because
Yeah,
no
yeah,
one can manage your organic social media better than yourself. And they're the ones who understand trends. They're the ones who are
yeah,
sitting
yeah.
there. I know it's really hard as an older person to sit there and go like, what are you doing? You're just on your phone again. They're not on their phone. They're trying to find a trend. They're trying to find the next thing that they can help grow your business with. And I think that is so
Yeah, yeah.
important that people forget.
It's true. And they're like that. Well, like my daughter, she's got friends in that same age group and they all, and they've got a different way of thinking about social media. It's very much a core part of their lives. And even if they're cooking a meal at night, they'll be making a short about how they prepared the meal. They'll constantly be sending photos and video to each other. It's almost like a daily stream of
Mm,
content. I'm not in that mindset, nor are you. It's pure, if you've got consumers that age, it would be very important to employ someone that about that age or that generation that understands how the consumers interact with social media rather than just researching or asking AI, having a real live person. But as you mentioned earlier, if your customer is a bit older, maybe you employ someone that knows more about, say, how Facebook works, for example, because they're more
exactly.
likely to understand how Facebook and how people like me that work a lot on, well, not so much work on Facebook, but my social and family life is a lot of it's around Facebook. So I understand
Mm,
how it works and how valuable it is, and horses for courses, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, horses for courses. I could continue this conversation with you all morning. It's great to get your insights, and I just wanted to thank you for being a guest on the Buddies podcast today.
No, absolute pleasure. It was really, really exciting. The conversation, I thought, we've touched on so many different things, and I hope that your listeners actually enjoyed it. As I used my line when I told my parents I'm going on a podcast, I said I've got a voice for silent movies and a face for radio. So hopefully people aren't too shocked by either.
And if people want to reach out to you, I'm going to put all of your contact details and socials in the show notes. So I strongly encourage reach out to you. If you're a small business wanting to really explore agencies, reach out to Rattan, and he'll be certainly there to steer you in the right direction. So thank you, sir.
No, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this Buddez podcast. To get all the podcasts and great workshops, visit buddez.com and join our community. We'll see you there. Bye for now.